So now we have seen that how the arrays work. But the arrays which we have seen are single dimensional. That means they are just rows. But we can have data set like rows and columns. For that, either we can go for two-dimensional or multi-dimensional array. In this lecture, we'll see how the two-dimensional arrays work with JavaScript. While using traditional array, we can only imagine to assign data with a single row. Internally, which looks like this, a single row with columns and accessed by these indices, which is called a single dimensional array. But it is also possible to assign multiple sets of data in a single array, which has both rows and columns. It is called a two-dimensional array. A two-dimensional array is a collection of data elements arranged in a grid-like structure with rows and columns. Each element in the array is referred to as a cell. In a one-dimensional array, the index numbers which are assigned to rows also can be used to access columns in a 2D array, which also starts from 0. In JavaScript, there is no particular syntax for a two-dimensional array. It is assigned with a simple array of arrays. Let's see it practically. Here I'll say let table is equal to, we'll open the square bracket, so this becomes one array, and inside, now let me open another bracket, I'll say 1, 2, 3, and I'll end it. Now this means that this is an array inside an array. I'll put a comma, we'll give 4, 5, 6, comma, and 7, 8, 9. Now this looks almost like a matrix, and this is what a two-dimensional array is. Let's just say console log and table. Let's run the code, and you can see that we have the array data displayed. Now if I want to access, let's say, the third row, that means I'll say console log table in the square bracket, I'll say 2. Now let's run the code, and we also get the third row of the array. But table of 2 refers only the row. You can also access an individual element, that is a piece of data. For that, you will have to use row and column as index. So here in the console log, I'll say table of 2 and 1. Here the 2 refers to the row and 1 refers to the column. Let's run the code, and we get the second element of the third row. Now let's traverse through this array with the logic. So here I'll put a for loop. Again, the same loop which we tried in the previous lectures. So I'll say let I is equal to 0. Table of I is not equal to undefined, and I++. I'll say console log table of I. Now let's run the code and see what happens. As you can see that it is showing the rows, but we want to refer individual element, which is not possible with this syntax because it is not row and column given in the console log. We have to give both row and column, and for that we will have to use an inner loop. So one loop will traverse vertically to refer the rows, and the other will traverse horizontally to refer columns. So let me put another loop here. I'll say for let j is equal to 0. Now here I'll say table of I and j is not equal to undefined, and I'll say j++. Do remember we can use the length property also, but because I mentioned that we are working with algorithms, better to learn the tough way so that in future it will be easy for you to deal with it. Alright, now let me just say console log I and j. Let's run the code, and there we have all the elements displayed. So this is about traversing through two-dimensional array, and I hope you get what a two-dimensional array is. It is just a row and column which you have to refer.